Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto becomes the no-life king, the blood-drinking vampire, movie. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, The Winter Knight, link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. As Sarah was walking through the basement, she was pretty young, about 20 years old with one striking feature. Her eyes were red instead of your typical human's colors. She also had pointy teeth. In short, she was a vampire. Now vampires aren't supposed to exist, but they exist, so what can we do about it but accept it? Sarah was walking to her master's coffin. For those who don't understand the relationship, her master turned her into a vampire and she is now his fledgling. As Sarah opened the coffin and probed into the darkness for Alucard, her master's name, body, she finally grasped something that felt like an arm. As she pulled the arm up, she found that the arm was in his pants and his body was being raised by his belt. Sarah's face quickly turned red. And she then tossed the body away from her. "So police girl, I never knew you was that eager." Alucard broke out laughing. "Master, I didn't mean for that to happen, sorry." She laughed sheepishly. "So how does Walter fare?" Alucard's expression never changed for a moment while Sarah's expression darkened. Walter isn't himself anymore, but he's slowly recovering his memories again. Pretty soon he may come back to duty. Sarah slowly spoke, as if Alucard was a child. "This shall be most interesting. The Angel of Death returns to his rightful place at the head of Death's side. Integra aka Sir Helsing, and the last of the noble proud lineage, and the woman to whose Alucard bows to, then opened the door and strolled in front of Alucard, and then she did something no one was expecting. She shot Alucard in the head and grinned in mad pleasure as Alucard began his inhuman recovery. "That's for setting my paperwork behind a whole month." Alucard then used his shadow powers to raise himself up and meet Integra's eyes, a bond of understanding between them, while Sarah's was totally lost. The Angel of Death in question was in a padlocked room with a straitjacket on. His eyes darted across the room for any means for an escape. He searched for any methods before giving up and collapsing in a sigh of defeat. For he was captured by the remaining Nazis of World War II and had his youth restored at the cost of his memories. He was recaptured by the Helsing, mainly through the efforts of Sarah's and Alucard, who used their command across Shadow to provide targets for Walter to send his lethal wires to. His wires were made from a special metal that was most strong, indeed. As Walter perked up because he heard footsteps and got to a stance that would make use of his inhuman agility, Alucard then walked through the wall and smiled as Walter sighed. "Now, Angel of Death, do you want to be free of this cursed prison? What do you think?" Walter spat at Alucard. "Now that's not nice at all." Alucard then laughed more of his trademark laughter. His laughter was abruptly ended by a deep rumbling of the mansion. Pictures were ripped to shreds, vases exploded, and the staff and the soldiers fell on the ground screaming. The entire mansion disappeared from England without a trace. The mansion was flying through the air, spinning. People were holding on to anything that could offer support to them in this time of crisis. Integra was being held by Sarah, who used her limited control across the darkness to anchor both the women. Alucard was holding Walter by his collar and Walter was cursing Alucard all the while. Now we must ask what happened. The answer may shock you. For Kyuubi, the nine-tails fox demon tore open a dimensional rift between the worlds. As Kyuubi roared out an exclamation of surprise as a giant mansion appeared out of a rift and landed in a lucky empty plot of land in Konoha, the village of the leaf. It wasn't on purpose. That can be said about Kyuubi's tearing of the rift with one of its grand nine tails. Kyuubi was attacking Konoha, the hidden village, while the ninjas that populated the village were making a last-ditch effort to hinder the Kyuubi from destroying their beloved village. Alucard then teleported out and gazed across the burning city. War is being waged. Alucard roared out and began to play an image piano. Alucard then brought out Integra, Sarah's, and Walter, but left the rest of the staff inside because the shock would no doubt be too much for them. "Look, Master. Yet another London drenched in burning flames. Look at the people being slaughtered as if they were lambs." Alucard cackled madly and spread his arms wide and spun and then fell on the ground laughing. "Such a shame, I can't wage my power against that demon that I spy in the distance." Alucard then sighed melodramatically. Integra was now at a most difficult decision. Do she help the people or flee? As Integra announced her decision, she was cut off by a man rushing towards her screaming, "Kyuubi's here. We're dead. Run." As the man ran and ran, he was then stabbed by one of Kyuubi's tails. "I sense an aura of raw power. I challenge you, who you are." Kyuubi snarled, searching for this aura, for Kyuubi couldn't see like humans could do. He could only see auras which through his eyes spied an aura set apart from the rest of the others. This particular aura was pitch black in contrast with the people's grayish or bright colors auras. Alucard was standing in the exact same spot as the aura that Kyuubi was searching for. Master, I thirst for battle. Let me wage sweet battle upon this damned creature. Alucard then took out his weapons Coswell and Jackal. Put your weapons away, I hereby release level 0, hold release until target is silenced, target is the fox demon. Sir Helsinger and Tegra then lit a cigar and held her elbows and also ordered Seraz to release Walter. Now, Butler, you have a choice, you can flee and be cut down by Seraz or you aid Alucard in his fight. Walter then agreed to the fight, after all, he was a naturally born berserker. Seraz then took her 2 anti-tank cannons from the darkness that surrounded the 4 deadly people. Alucard then roared out laughing as he felt his former power returning to him as his armor crafted itself from air and a sword exploded from his hand and his face then became covered in beards. Kyuubi finally found the aura that was bothering him. Kyuubi's eyes widened as the aura increased in size by almost 6-fold. This is the true power of the son of dragon, Dracula. Alucard, now known as Dracula for the remainder of the battle, then summoned his minions from his coffins. People across the villages then stared at the figure in shining armor in front of a massive army. Now, we see who the true monster is. Alucard spoke to Kyuubi. You can't defeat me, for I am the great Kyuubi. Kyuubi roared out, the earth then exploded with Kyuubi's roar. Alucard then leapt in the air and flew to Kyuubi's face and drew first blood. As Kyuubi screamed in pure rage, the 9 tails were trashing and demolishing even more buildings, and some of the army that was under Dracula's command for those armies were the very people that Dracula ate. The person of particular note was a berserker wielding 2 silver axes that rushed in a furious attack towards one of Kyuubi's legs and yelled out in delight as he heard flesh and muscles tearing under his lethal strokes. His victory however was short-lived as Kyuubi chomped him up and tore through the body with little effort. Seraz, meanwhile, was busy dodging and shooting the swatting tails with her agility gained by drinking blood. Walter went back inside the mansion and searched for his wires which took him about an hour to find. Meanwhile, Seraz ran out of ammo and flew to Integra's side and whisked her away to a safe place from which to watch the fight raging on between Dracula and Kyuubi. Impressive for a demon, you're one of the few that can keep Dracula at bay for more than a few moments, but this all ends now. Alucard then roared out, relying on his forbidden technique to finally conquer Kyuubi. You are the most interesting vampire. The vampires I faced fell easily to my fangs and claws, I will not lose to you. As Alucard chanted the dark ritual words of power, he was shocked to see a soul man leaping from the mountain on Kyuubi's back. The man in question had violently blonde hair and was cloaked in a white robe with red flames on the edges of it. In short, he was the Fourth Hokage, sworn to protect everyone. Alucard heard a short sentence and heard the sound of hands clapping together in various positions. He then felt an immense power, even more powerful than him sealing the Kyuubi. He saw the spirit of Kyuubi flowing across the night sky like it was twilight and the spirit then whirled and flew to a location far away from him. He also saw the man that leapt and fell head down. He then teleported to that man and caught him and set him on the ground when Alucard turned the man across. I see that was Alucard's only remark upon seeing the man's face. For that man was dead. Pasted on his face was a generous smile. As Alucard roared out as he felt his vast power beginning to leave his body. Shadows and darkness exploded from his body, leaving bloody holes in his body which he regenerated in a matter of seconds. Alucard then began a melodramatic song for the dead man who gave his life to kill the Kyuubi. As a group of men rushed up towards Alucard and the dead man, one man in particular had the guts to accuse Alucard of killing the dead man. Alucard then stared at that man and lowered his glasses. Fear what you do not know, Alucard's only reply to that unjust accusation. An elderly man then walked to the front of the group and said, "Patience, Hyuga-san. I can sense that Arashi, the legendary Fourth Hokage, used a forbidden seal to seal the Kyuubi away inside a person. The only question is where. I know where the spirit of Kyuubi went, but I must agree with my master first." Alucard hinted darkly, licking his bloody lips, fangs showing in a show of intimidation. The group protested heavily to this, some even went so far to suggest murdering the person that Kyuubi was sealed in for revenge for killing the Hokage. Alucard snarled and brought his jackal up to that man's face and said, "Dogs are incapable of defeating a monster, only a man. What the hell did you say to me?" Hyuga gestured quite violently to Alucard. As Seraz flew Integra and herself to Alucard's location, Integra spoke to Seraz, "If this turns bad, be prepared for Alucard's level 0 release again." "Yes sir." Seraz eluded the best she could because she was busy carrying Integra. As Seraz dropped Integra quite lightly, she stood in front of Alucard and brought out her cannons which were now empty, but they didn't understand the concept of guns. "Who are you to match Kyuubi that easily?" the elderly man inquired. "I am a true Nosferatu. That was Alucard's only reply. I thought that the entire race was wiped out a long time ago. I am the third Hokage. I am most pleased to meet you. We aren't from here, we are from the world called Earth, and we live in the United Kingdom and England. Integra finally made her entrance. Master, did you enjoy the fight? Alucard inquired wildly. Yes, servant, you did very well. This is the first time I have seen you so happy after a battle. Integra then exhaled out some of her cigar's smoke. Some of the men that were in a pack didn't take well to Integra at all. One of the men that was in the group called her a damn. She's a fucking dyke. Sarah's, Alucard's eyes both widened while Integra's eyes narrowed and issued a command for both Alucard and Sarah's to have their way with that man. As Alucard was busy eating the unsuspecting man in front of horrified men, the third Hokage then exclaimed, well. You certainly have a duo of most lethal people with you, my lady. Thank you for that praise, and I am not a lady, I am Sir Helsing. Integra corrected him for he didn't know the customs of England. My apologies, Sir Helsing, what can you say to me about your appearance here, and on the behalf of the village of Konoha, I welcome you here. Thank you, Hokage, we were in the midst of a calm night when my mansion began to shake and then fell through the sky and landed into your village. We still have some people in there, about 200 people. Integra caught on to the customs quickly. Walter was spied running up to Integra. So I missed the fight. Walter then became downcast. It was a fight worthy of death himself. Alucard roared out laughing. Don't rub it in. You damn vampire. Walter yelled at a laughing Alucard. Now let us ignore those two childish people, now what can we do to aid you? Integra asked the Hokage. The Hokage then replied, we need to assure the location of the person which the Kyuubi was sealed in, your servant. Alucard knows the location of the person. But he refuses to tell us before consenting with you first because he heard some of our less agreeable requests to do to that person. Servant, bring the person here. Alucard then teleported to the place he recalled the spirit being whirled at. As Alucard's eyes clapped upon the person, he was immediately ashamed, which was a rarity for the people that suggested killing. For the person was a mere baby. The baby in question was in the middle of a large ritual piece with dozens of candles around him, a seal was on his stomach burning into the baby's flesh. Alucard then checked for the gender for the baby and was struck by a most hideous odor issuing from the baby's buttocks. Alucard then deadened his nose and then checked the baby's gender. So, a boy defeated a monster. This is most interesting. Alucard roared out laughing. Alucard took the baby in his arms and then teleported to his master, and after he teleported to the proper location. He then snarled at the people that had weapons in their hands and presented the baby to Integra. Integra softly stroked the baby's head and said, I wish to take care of this baby. Integra sensed a vast potential in the baby. The Hokage then said, well, we need to make all of you citizens of Konoha first, then you can adopt the baby, and I heard that you had about 200 people inside your mansion. I wish for them to mingle with the local population to help replace those Kyuubi so mercilessly killed. Integra agreed. Excellent. Now please come with me to my office, or do you wish to do it later? The Hokage asked. Later, until we repair this once proud village. The commander of the Helsing organization spoke. Alucard, I wish for you to aid them in rebuilding the village. And no sabotaging, you are under orders to rebuild this village even greater than it once was. Integra spoke most dangerously. Alucard bowed down and said yes, my master. And grinned madly. Alucard then flew off to gain lumber. Sir Oz, would you help me in raising this baby? Sir Helsing asked. Of course. I've always wanted a little brother. Sir Oz squealed, which caused the baby to cry even harder. Walter, do you wish to be my butler once again? Integra turned to the last member of the group. But of course, my dear Sir Integra. Walter stood erect and proud. I remember who you are now, forgive me for worrying you, Sir Integra. Integra then turned to the Hokage and spoke. As Integra cooed to the baby that was now sleeping in her arms, and then she beckoned for Sir Oz to take the baby off her arms, and then she stood in her trademark pose. Now, Hokage, what is the baby's name? The Hokage then chuckled and suggested a most powerful name, Naruto. Several months later, Alucard was on a frontline war with a hidden village, the village of Cloud. Kakashi was there with Alucard, Walter was there as well. Kakashi was sitting atop a boulder with a very bored expression on his face, which was covered up by his trademark mask. Alucard then brought out Jackal and shot a tree and grinned madly as a Cloud ninja fell over dead with an immense hole in his chest with a shocked expression on his face. So, Alucard, how did you know that the ninja was there? Kakashi asked in a sarcastic voice. You underestimate me too much, dog. Alucard discovered a nickname for Kakashi. Bastard Kakashi didn't even really bother to come up with an insult to Alucard. Walter meanwhile was busy reading Icha Icha Paradise with a most bloody nose pasted on his face. Walter then chuckled like a maniac would. I blame you for turning the angel of death into a pervert. Alucard then stared at the shameless act that Walter was now performing. To give you a hint, he was holding the book with one hand and his pants were down to his ankles. Hey, it's not my fault that I found it on a dead ninja, but I'm kinda interested in what's in the book. Kakashi then shifted his position atop the boulder. Alucard then gazed over Walter's shoulders and his eyes widened. Never knew a woman could do that at all. Alucard was now very surprised at the picture explicated on the book. Let's go back. Walter was now finished with his business and pulled up his pants and washed his hands. Walter then put on his trademark gloves and then threw out his wires and nodded at Alucard and Kakashi, who immediately disappeared. As Kakashi was leaping through the trees, Walter was riding a flock of bats that had the same sinister aura as Alucard. All three were moving at a high speed towards Konoha. As they leapt over a massive cliff, they then flew through the air and watched Konoha while they were falling down the cliff. Alucard then mumbled enough of this and grabbed both Kakashi and Walter and then teleported to Konoha's front gate. They landed with a dusty thud and waved to the guards, and the guards let them in among a bustling street full of youths and women that was now pregnant. The reason why so many women were pregnant is because the Hokage and Hellsing made a secret pact. Hellsing let her troops meet the women and the staff mingled with the surviving ninjas. Well, the troop was most happy to get it and made babies at an alarming rate. In a few years the population of Konoha would be even larger than before, and the Hokage was proud of this fact, especially after being at a war with a village and fending off a demon of immense power. The Hokage was in a meeting with Integra discussing the defense of the village. Integra then ordered Walter and the weapon scientists still working under her to mass produce weapons that could be used by women and also various cannons made from metals. They inserted the cannons in various key positions, and since the fitting of the cannons to the wall, Konoha later became known as the Iron Curtain due to the fact that they never lost the village after the cannon was in place. The people were proud of the fact that villages feared the Iron Curtain and they had to protect it daily from enemy ninjas. Naruto in the question was now a very happy boy. Sarah's made a new toy for him and she brought him to the park almost every day. Now this may sound odd, but Sarah's had long since mastered her vampire side and was just a few notches under Alucard in terms of skills. Naruto blabbed happily as he made various sounds and played with his toys and cried for Sarah's to play with him. Sarah smiled sweetly as she watched Naruto playing. She noticed someone with a baby and waved at the person. This person was alarmed and flinched but gradually inched toward Sarah's. The person had a complete white pair of eyes and her hair was midnight black with hints of bluish colors. She then nodded at Sarah's and Sarah said, "Why don't we let the babies play with each other?" Sarah's asked the mysterious woman. "Forgive me for being afraid and excuse my manners, I am the matriarch of the Hyuga house." The woman smiled at Sarah's. The woman let the baby down and the baby crawled towards Naruto and cooed to him in baby language and the woman said babies are the epitome of innocence. Sarah's agreed to that and asked for the woman's name. As the mysterious woman revealed her name, it was Momori. "So, Momori, what's your daughter's name?" Sarah's inquired. "It's Hinata-chan." Momori replied. "That's a pretty name." Sarah's grinned at Momori, who seemed to be caught off guard by Sarah's pointy fangs. "Oh. I forgot to tell you I am a vampire." Sarah's chuckled sheepishly. Momori looked upon Sarah's with a mix of fear and awe. Sarah's then turned her eyes on Naruto, who was getting along with Hinata quite well. "Best they like each other, huh?" Hiashi walked in the scenery. "Have no fear." Hiashi spoke as Sarah's leaped to her feet. "I know you. You're the one master told me to watch out for." Sarah snarled. "You're right about me being needed to be watching out for," Hiashi told Sarah's. "Look at him. You would never know a demon was sealed inside him." Hayashi spoke sadly, referring to Naruto. "But Hiashi-sama, Hinata-chan likes him." Momori spoke up. "Is the Hellsing family going to train Naruto?" Hayashi had a most devious plan in mind. "Of course. Why ask?" Sarah's was questioning Hiashi. "Well, I was thinking of an alliance between our houses." Hayashi was pointing out the benefits of an alliance. "Well, I need to talk to Sir Integra about it first. If you want me to, I can have Master Teleporter here." Sarah's perked up. "Please do so." Hiashi's eyes began to show hints of joy and sinister thinking at work. Moments passed before Integra stepped out of a patch of shadows followed by Alucard. "So, I heard this talk about an alliance, am I not right?" Integra then lit up a cigar which was promptly taken away by Sarah's, who said it was bad for the babies. "You are most correct, Sir Hellsing." Hiashi's eyes seemed to quiver out of eagerness. "Why do you want an alliance this badly?" Integra still doubted his ulterior motives. "This would take a long explanation, but I shall attempt." Firstly, my clan would take care of your clan in terms of money and services, and we can train more youths with some of those guns you have. I know that Naruto will be a force to be reckoned with in the future, and I want to bind my house to your house. I suppose it is like I scratch your back, you scratch mine. The head of Hyuga spoke. Let me think it over, Hayashi Integra grimaced. Very well. For now, my wife and I must depart home. Good night. Hiashi smiled a slightly evil smile. Integra and Alucard waited for Saraz to pick up Naruto, and then they went back to the mansion which was under construction for the baby, as Walter bowed to Helsing and presented her with meals for the baby. How was your meeting, Sir Integra? Walter smiled an elderly smile. The most eventful. Integra smiled an odd smile, and a most sinister one at that. I learned that we may have a chance of surviving in this world, but you will need to develop new technology all by your lonesome self, until I manage to convince the Hokage to send you some aid. Integra then waved for Walter to leave. Alucard, go to sleep, in preparation for your mission tomorrow night. Alucard then retreated into the walls, grinning madly, with the walls sprouting eyes and mouths. Saraz, how do you feel about this arranged marriage? Integra asked Saraz yet again. Well, sir, it's a bit odd, after all, I'm used to living in a modern time, not an old time like this place. Saraz spoke quite unimpressed. I've decided to accept it. Ignoring Saraz's surprise, she continued. Think about it, since Naruto has a demon sealed into him, who do you think would let him near their families? Some people are so damned prejudiced. Hayashi luckily offered us a way out of a bad situation. Helsing finished off her lecture on the importance of this arranged marriage. But, what if Naruto doesn't love Hinata, or if Hinata doesn't like Naruto at all? Saraz asked. This is precisely why the good lord gave us Aphrodite drugs. Integra then grinned madly, and then Naruto sneezed and woke up crying in the middle of the night. Releasing Level 1, Situation B, Cromwell approval in effect was the last thing masses of humans heard, as Alucard roared out laughing, shooting madly, and letting his dog jaws sprout from his body, and gliding towards the unsuspecting ninjas hiding behind the ruined trees and houses in the now inflamed city of Nodnal. Pretty easy to guess, huh? Nodnal used to be an underworld city full of sin, and trading, and drugs, and sex. Alucard was sent there on a mission. The mission was intended for the alliance between the Helsing and Hyuga houses to cement. Saraz was dancing through the ninjas, and the militia like a ballet dancer would, tearing, slamming her hands through the bodies and skulls of those pitiful humans that were struggling to protect their beloved city. Hurry. Hurry up. Show me the true power of a man that defeats a true monster. Alucard teleported around the city shooting and sucking men dry of their blood. Meanwhile, Integra and Hiashi were watching the destruction with a grim pleasure pasted upon their lips. So is this to your liking, Hiashi-sama? Integra puffed out a smoke of a cigar she was dragging. Of course, Sir Helsing, this city has long been a thorn in the side of the Hyuga house. As agreed, we will give our firstborn daughter to your son to be wed in matrimony. Also, we will be your ally in any upcoming political struggle. Hayashi replied. The only question I have to be how your servant will, Alucard, reduce the city to ruins. Hayashi was inquiring with a hint of confusion in his voice. Simple, Alucard. Situation E. Cromwell destruction innovative in effect, hold effect until Situation E is complete eternally. Integra roared out, stomping her cigar beneath her like a man would crush a victim's hand. How splendid, this promotes a stirring in my loins. Order acknowledged. Alucard dropped his twin guns and beckoned for Saraz to teleport out of the now ruined city of Nodnal. Then Alucard did something no one has even seen before. He summoned a massive rune complete with writing of dark destruction and hatred and rage inscribed all across the border, which was refaced by a 5-point star. The rune was slowly rotating around all three of its axes. The rune then suddenly stopped parallel to the ground, and the rune began to glow a bloody red with Alucard above the rune, while the survivors of the ruined town were looking up with awe and fear. Alucard then jammed his left hand within the rune and chanted a dark ritual, and the rune exploded, and the energy that was bound inside the rune all went down and slammed into the town. Alucard was still chanting the ritual, while rays of energy were slamming into Nodnal. But the final word out of Alucard's lips, the ground under Nodnal swallowed the town whole and sent it to hell, or what was closest to hell in the alternative dimension. Saraz was standing by Integra and Hiashi. Wow, Master is so strong. He's not human. She then smiled at this ironic remark. Alucard then glided to Hiashi and Integra, cape billowing behind him. Situation E complete. Cromwell initiative now no longer in effect. Alucard then smiled, showing off his inhuman teeth. Alucard-sama, you have my utmost gratitude for destroying this accursed town. And you, Saraz-sama, you too have my thanks, and Sir Helsing, I acknowledge you as master of true monsters. Hiashi's voice quivered with both fear and respect. I expect you to uphold your end of the deal. Hiashi-sama. Ah, but of course. I invite you to a feast in our house in honor of the fall of Naruto tonight. Hiashi then bowed to his knees and inquired if they could teleport back to Konoha. After all, he said it was fun. Meanwhile at the Helsing mansion, Walter was passed out from the sheer smell issuing from Naruto's buttocks. Integra then opened the door and immediately covered her nose, gasping for breath. She then closed the door and went to the barracks for a gas mask and then put it on and then came back to the room and stared at Walter's form that was on the ground spread eagle. Integra then changed Naruto's diaper and ordered a weeping Alucard to throw the disgusting dirty diaper far away from Konoha and bury it. Years later, skeletons of small animals can still be found around the buried diaper that killed the animals because of their sensitive noses. As Alucard and Sarah's prepared to open a portal to the Hyuga clan's house, Hiashi immediately stood up and ordered the staff to prepare food for the guests. As Integra walked into the dining room with a formal kimono that seemed to squirm with dark thoughts of its own, Sarah's was in a most beautiful kimono that accented her impressive body. "Thank you for coming to our humble abode." Hayashi bowed down to Integra, which with a snarl, curtsied back. Lamori then came up to Sarah's and gestured for her to come with her and to bring Naruto along. As Sarah's let Naruto down carefully, Naruto sensed Hinata and then excitedly crawled across to Hinata. Naruto was born about 17 months ago. Hinata. Naruto spoke his very first word. "Did you just hear about Naruto-kun?" Lamori exclaimed. "I know." Sarah's was jumping for joy right now and squealed like a schoolgirl. Hinata. Naruto was calling out for Hinata and then Hinata did something no one expected. She replied Naruto that caused the two jumping women to faint from sheer excitement. A resounding thud was heard through the mansion of Hiashi, who promptly sent an elite Hyuga to check the thud, and the word was that Mamori and Sarah's were crying and holding each other because the babies just said their first words. Hayashi replied, "I see, this is good news, indeed." Integra could only nod in agreement with a smirk. "Let us make a toast to the unity of Hyuga and Helsing." Walter was now extremely drunk on the potent sake that Hayashi made himself. But the foaming Walter and tow, the Helsing group left the Hyuga's estate, waving goodbye to the head of the Hyuga house. "Well, this is certainly a pleasant turn of events." Integra smirked and then spoke some more. "At least we know that they are united for eternity." 6 years later. "Damn it, you freaking bastard." Naruto was dodging some of Alucard's bullets. "What the hell did I do to you?" Naruto screamed. "Why can't I play with a friend?" Alucard took on a hurt tone and shot some more. Hinata all the while was watching, trembling every time she heard the crack of Alucard's guns. Walter immediately stood to attention and said to Hinata, "You must focus more on your studies and less time worrying about Naruto. He has a special talent that won't allow him to be harmed that grievously." Walter then smiled a warm smile. "But, it's so scary, hearing the guns." Hinata's voice was shaking because she was in the Jayukin stance, parrying some of Sarah's vicious attacks. "Good. You've improved quite a while since we last fought." Sarah's replied as she flipped into a split spinning kick that slammed into Hinata's delicate skin. Bruises were all over Hinata's pale body. Naruto then finally had enough of Alucard's shooting and summoned his Gatling gun. He then recalled the moment he received it from his family. "Naruto, this is the fruition of 5 years of technology available here. This is called the Storm Crier. This gun uses your chakra as ammos, so if you have a lot of chakra you have a lot of ammos to shoot Alucard up." Walter then brought up a case that kept the gun and unlocked it in front of a wide-eyed Naruto and an awestruck Hyuga family. "Naruto, the gun is fitted to your size right now, so when you grow up to be big and strong, the gun can grow with you." Sarah's clapped her hands and smiled. Alucard then smirked and grabbed Naruto's shirt and dragged him and tossed him outside, bringing out his guns and exclaimed, "Shoot me." Naruto was all too happy to oblige. "Very good. You have outdone yourself this time, Walter." He then flashed a nice guy pose that immediately struck down Alucard, who was screaming, "Oh, yes. The pain." Naruto then whispered to Hinata, who was behind Mamori, and said, "I think he's a Maz to this person." Hinata could only nod in agreement. "Naruto, I have a last gift to give to you on your 6th birthday." She presented Naruto with an ebony flute. Naruto in awe blew it hard. What happened forced Mamori to shield Hinata's eyes. Alucard's head blew up. "Naruto, really? You should be more careful with that flute because it is a special flute that will summon Alucard to your side if you're in a right mess of stuff." "Well, master, due to all the excitement around here I just had an orgasm." Alucard then reformed his head and stood up. Was the adult's only reply. "Ni-chan, what's that word?" Naruto asked Sarah's, who immediately was at a loss of explanation. "You'll understand when your old." Sarah's was able to answer that much. Well, now back to the present. Naruto raised his crier and squeezed the trigger. The resulting shots threw him backward several feet and Alucard's body now resembled that of a Swiss cheese. Good. Hurry up. Hurry up and kill me to prove that humans are superior to monsters. Alucard's chest opened up in an eye which was shattered by one of Naruto's stray shots. Naruto puked his stomach up after seeing a eye's fluid ooze out of a ruined eye that was on Alucard's chest. Your loss. Alucard scared and brought his gun to Naruto's head, which made him wet his pants. As Alucard's maniacal smile began to spread, he was immediately cut to pieces by flying wires that enclosed him. Really, Sir Alucard, must you terrorize the little boy so? Walter was asking with a tone of pity in his voice. Pay attention. Sir Oz roared at a distracted Hinata who was immediately kicked by Sir Oz. Ouch, Hinata struggled to get up after being sent flying by that kick. If I could just do something about her legs, Hinata then set into her stance and waited for the kick to come. She closed her eyes. Sir Oz gasped and was. Sir Oz gasped out loud. For Hinata had just activated her bloodline limit for the first time and her eyes had veins surrounding the eyes. Sir Oz then attempted to jump back, knowing fully well the disadvantages of fighting the Byakugan. Sir Oz then yelped out with pain as Hinata caught up to her and struck several chakra points shut on some of Sir Oz's well-shaped legs. Hinata then managed to hit one more chakra point shut before fainting from the sheer amount of chakra needed to keep her limit up. Sir Oz was on the ground, massaging her legs, cursing all the while. After a few minutes Sir Oz was able to get up and limp to Hinata and then ascertained if Hinata was okay, and then Sir Oz carried Hinata back to the Hyuga's estate with words of good news. Meanwhile, Alucard transformed into a mass of sticky liquid matter that seemed to absorb light, and then the dog's head popped up only to be shot to pieces by an enraged Naruto which was yelling, "Damn it. Why can't I have my freaking ramen?" For Alucard had seized Naruto and teleported Naruto outside the Hellsing estate right when Naruto was to taste his favorite type of ramen. This of course threw Naruto in a fit of rage. Nirvana Alucard could only be heard whispering to himself from the sheer pain and torture his earthly body was being put through right now. At least it looked like torture to the same people that populated the still rebuilding Konoha. Naruto had finally succeeded in ripping off what the men used to please their women. And then he sliced open the twins' companions to the wedding tackle with his ever-trusty storm crier. Now some may question if Naruto was sane or insane. The educated answer is Naruto is sane when he's with sane people and insane when he's with insane people, so it really depends on the situation. Alucard, meanwhile, was entering the higher levels of nirvana. With loads of passionate and pleasurable sounds, Naruto then jumped away to the Hellsing estate, leaving Alucard to his devices. Naruto has certainly grown. Walter chuckled before. Naruto couldn't even do that torture to Alucard before. Walter then began his daily brisk power walking, leaving a mass of shocked and passed out citizens in his wake. As Naruto trudged back to the Hellsing Manor, his mouth began to salivate at the thought of slowly munching and slurping his most beloved ramen. He daydreamed about how he would stroke the sweet tender meat with his chopsticks. And he longed to stab and impale the unassuming meat with a kunai and tear apart the meat from its tendons. In short, Naruto was famished after that battle with his so-called mentor Alucard. Hinata, meanwhile, was cooking up some mighty delicious ramen of the exact same kind Naruto was daydreaming about. Coincidence? No one knows. Hinata had just come to the Hellsing Manor from her estate. The Hyuga elders who were in charge of her training were now drunk to the world upon hearing that she had activated her bloodline limit at such a young age. The other elders who were concerned about Hinata's ability were now serving the elders who had betted on Hinata to succeed. Hinata was just wondering something among those lines about how messed up her family was when she heard a dusty thud that could only mean Naruto was home. Hinata then walked quickly to the kitchen and placed a bowl and then scooped up and put on the plate a huge pile of hot, steaming ramen. Hinata then giggled at the thought that when Naruto would see all that ramen, he would proclaim something really corny. Naruto, meanwhile, was ripping off his sweat-drenched clothes and then went into one of those fancy standing baths, as Naruto called it. Naruto still had trouble turning on the shower and screamed Bloody Mary. When he turned on the cold water and scrambled for the hot water and yet again another Bloody Mary. When he was blasted with boiling water. Get some more curses and yells. Naruto had finally got the temperature he wanted, which was lukewarm water. Hinata heard the entire ruckus and then started up the grand staircase that the Hellsing Manor was famous for and slowly trudged up the absolutely massive stairs. At the top, Hinata was panting and laying on the formal carpet, fanning herself from that sheer physical demonstration. Hinata then jumped up and then walked to the door and then opened it saying "Hi, Naruto." Only for an awkward silence to deafen the entire mansion. Hinata has just seen Naruto stepping out of the bathtub reaching for a cloth. Naruto's frontal body was completely exposed to Hinata's innocent virgin eyes. Hinata's eyes were straining to stare in Naruto's eyes and not his lower body. But alas. She failed badly. Partly due to the reason that the Hyuga's eyes are capable of a vast field of vision, and her skill with her eyes was not enough for her to see Naruto's best friend. Naruto. Now he could only say in a sheepishly voice, "Hi. Hinata, how are you?" Hinata. She finally saw what the difference between a female and a male was. What happened next? Hinata then fainted from a massive nosebleed. Her nosebleed sent her flying across the hall right into Sera's bosom. Sera's then yelled, and she got a taste of some of Hinata's blood, and Sera's almost went bloodlust mode then, but she was able to control herself, and then Sera set Hinata down, but not before jamming some paper tissues up Hinata's nose to stop the nosebleed. She then walked in the bathroom yelling like a banshee from hell. "Alright. Naruto. What did you just do?" And then she saw Naruto wrapped up in a towel cloth, and then Sera's was able to put two and two together and burst out laughing. "Hinata actually saw you naked." And then she tried to walk out laughing, clutching her ribs. Matter of fact, Sera's laughed so hard she cracked some of her ribs which were healed ASAP. Naruto, meanwhile, was in a foul mood. "Hinata actually saw me naked. What if she thinks I'm gonna be a pervert? How can I explain this to Hiyashi?" Naruto then began to panic at the notion of Hiyashi finding out that his daughter saw a male naked. Now speaking of coincidence, Hiyashi and his beloved wife, Momori, was busy chatting happily with Integra, who allowed them in the Helsing manner. Now the blood from Hinata's nosebleed was now pooling at the bottom of the staircase due to the fact that the blood formed a mini river. Integra then stepped in the blood and then she immediately screamed for Alucard. "Now, servant. Explain to me why this blood is in the mansion." Alucard could only cackle laughing and then bent backwards, breaking his spine in the process. "Why? Young master. Just go up the staircase and there you shall witness a most tragic event." Integra and the two Hyuga thought something bad had happened and then rushed up the staircase in a most undignified run. As they ran through the hall, they came to a still laughing Sera's that was laughing and wincing from the pain from her ribs breaking over and over again. Hiyashi then spied his daughter passed out with blank vacant eyes with paper tissues jammed up her nose. Hiyashi then saw a shaking Naruto trying to hide behind an armor statue with his cloth still wrapped around him. Hiyashi then realized that Hinata had probably seen Naruto naked and Hinata had fainted from the massive nosebleed. Hiyashi's eyes turned into a steely white color and he then strained to turn his head to Momori. Hiyashi could only manage a low, threatening voice, "Honey, I blame you." Momori then remarked, "How's it my fault that my father showed Hinata porn when she was younger?" Weeks passed after that incident. Naruto was going his merry way saying hello to a mass of hateful and grumpy people who seems to burn inside when they heard Naruto shout greetings to them. Why was Naruto so happy, we must ask? Well, because today was his very first day of Ninja Academy. Hiyashi had pulled some strings to be able to get Hinata and Naruto into the academy so young. Meanwhile, the official supervisor of the Ninja Academy and the recruiter was all too busy flirting with shapely women who kept them oblivious to the world outside. Such a shame. Naruto then strolled to a swing set right outside the academy and sat on the creaky board. Naruto then spoke to himself, "Geez, that was awful nice of Hiyashi-sama to get me and Hinata in ninja school this early. I just wonder when Hinata-chan will show up." Speaking of the devil, Hinata was running for her life, weeping all the while, for an impish boy had thrown a rock at a bee's nest and the spawn of angry and frustrated bees attacked the closest person. Sadly, that happened to be Hinata. Hinata, upon hearing the buzzing of dozens of furious beating wings, she just did the sensible thing and ran for her life. As Naruto was exhaling and swinging on the swing set, he was aware of a commotion at the entrance. Hinata was running around dodging and prancing in order to avoid any stings on her fair skin. But why was Hinata trying so hard to dodge the stings? Oh, no. If I get stung, my skin will swell up and pus will flow out. Oh, it's so gross. Someone save me. All of that thought raced through Hinata's mind as she saw Naruto running toward her. She relaxed for a second. The bees descended. A piercing whistle went through the academy courtyard. Hundreds of squirming and dead bees laid on the ground. A massive shuriken was whirling through the air and then sharply turned back and whirled to the roof of the academy. Naruto then roared out, "Hey. Who the hell did that? Such a dork, aren't we?" Naruto, a black-haired boy, stood on the roof toying with his freakishly large shuriken. Naruto then whipped his head to look and yell at this bastard who got the attention Naruto so richly deserved. "Damn it, you emo bastard. You could have hurt Hinata. Uchiha never fuck anything up," the mysterious boy in the blue-tinted shirt spoke. "Sasuke spoke, can't even defend your betrothed. What type of man are you, dork?" Sasuke then jumped from the roof on the ground and was immediately jumped and glomped and then later fondled by Sasuke-crazed fangirls. Naruto could only look upon the pitiful scene with bitter disappointment. Naruto thought to himself, "I used to think Sasuke was so cool." As Naruto was reflecting on Sasuke's lost coolness, Sasuke finally managed to break free of the mob, or rather pile of lustful fangirls. Sasuke then jumped to a low branch, but still too high for the fangirls to get to. Sasuke meanwhile was in a most grievous state, indeed. Shredded clothes. Mangy hair. Bruises all across his fair skin. Raging temper. That described young Sasuke's daily life most accurately. Damn those girls all to an eternally burning inferno. This is like the 50th time. Sasuke was screaming when he found that his most treasured possession was stole. Naruto then whispers to Hinata to go to the academy and leaves Sasuke to his angst time. Hinata nodded and slowly inched away with Naruto and then entered the dusty but yet homely academy. Naruto and Hinata then walked around and found an instructor that was to help them guide them to their classes. When asked for their names, Naruto cheerfully replied, "I'm Naruto Hellsing." The instructor at that point started to have panic attacks and then guided the kids to their first ever ninja classes. Oh the joy. The poor instructor still is going to shrink years later. A shame really, he was such a skilled ninja. Naruto and Hinata waited for several minutes and were discouraged by the lack of people showing up. Then all of a sudden, Naruto and Hinata detected a faint but heavy footstep nearing the classroom door. Then a massive gloved hand broke through the door and Hinata began to shake. Naruto whispered to Hinata, "Hold me," for the man who had broke through the door was clad in a black trench coat with an obsidian black bandana wrapped around his head and a massive face with slashes across the face, and there was a horrifying sneer pasted on his face. An aura of intolerance seems to radiate from him, and he then began to walk to the board and removed his right glove and put his nails on the chalkboard and then fingernailed the blackboard. The resulting sound was so horrifying that every baby within a 1-mile radius woke up and cried for hours on hours. As the man turned to a now weeping Naruto and Hinata, he spoke in a gruff voice. "Ninjas don't cry." Naruto tried to control his crying and successfully did so, but Hinata was still scared and had some tears left. "Who are you?" Naruto finally got the courage to ask the mysterious man. "Why, I'm Ibiki Marino, commanding officer of the Anbu Torture and Interrogation Force, and I'm your sensei for now." He then grinned a sinister smile that seems to hide plots behind its face. Nevertheless, Naruto and Hinata were both very afraid, very afraid. "So you're our sensei?" Hinata managed to squeak out. "Yes, sadly. The Hokage appointed me to you brats, the nerve of him. Now we start your training, but first let me show you a personal favorite tactics of mine." Ibiki then took out a bag of ramen out of his trench coat. Naruto at that point was starting to foam, but alas. Ibiki tore the bag and poured the ramen on the ground and then stomped on it and grinded it into nothingness. The scene was so horrifying for Naruto that he began to weep for the ramen. Then after seeing Ibiki do that barbaric act to an innocent food was sufficient to make him faint. In short, Naruto had a weak stomach when it came to abuse to ramen. Such a shame really. Pretty lights. Giggling, Naruto was staring at a colorful lamp on the ceiling and then with a bolt he stood up, screaming, "Where am I?" Hinata then clamped her hand over Naruto's mouth, whispering, "Naruto-kun, please be quiet," for the massive man with the sadistic personality known as Ibiki was looking at a most splendid collection of torture instruments. Poisonous needles. Manual blenders. Skinning knives. Meat tenderizer. Those was just but a few of the vast collection on the wall that Ibiki was scanning. Then Ibiki let out an exclaiming remark and reached for the most devious torture known to mankind. It was a device of unspeakable cruelty. Ibiki then spoke to Hinata and Naruto to come and to face each other and to point at each other. A pair of very confused children obeyed, and then Ibiki said, "Ready for this?" Naruto could only remark, "What is it through?" Ibiki merely countered, "You'll see quite soon, boy." Then Ibiki moved his hand so swiftly that Hinata and Naruto weren't able to react, and then Hinata and Naruto jumped from each other, only to be stopped. They then stared at the malevolent device known only as the Chinese finger trap. Naruto was still blinking and looking rather stupid when Hinata inquired about Ibiki. "Is this our lesson for today, sensei?" Ibiki then spoke, "Quite a sharp mind you have there, Hyuga-san. Let's see if your mind is sharp enough to remove yourself from that device without breaking it." He then gave an evil broad grin and thought to himself, "Those kids won't figure it out for a bit. A good thing I have connections at the joke shop." Ibiki was overheard to be laughing to himself when Naruto solved the puzzle of the Chinese finger trap and got the device off and then walked up to Ibiki and attempted to reach to Ibiki's shoulder. Ibiki then turned around and was thunderstruck to see a very disappointed Naruto holding the CFT, short for Chinese finger trap, and Ibiki then chuckled to himself and said, "Shouldn't have underestimated you kids. You guys are done with classes for the day." Ibiki then smiled and left only to be stopped by Naruto's yelling, "Hey sensei. We didn't even do anything cool." To this Ibiki turned deadly serious and then spoke to both Naruto and Hinata very carefully. "Listen, you kids are already leagues ahead of the average kids your age. Your bodies are at their peak for their age limit relativity, but you kids aren't fit to be called ninjas until you can sharpen your minds with tactics and methods. Naruto asked how they was already ahead of other kids to Ibiki could only exhale and explained to Naruto that Hinata had already activated her bloodline limit at such a young age and Naruto was capable of fighting with his weapon already despite the fact that he wasn't even 7 years old yet. Hinata then inched closer and asked Ibiki if there was anything that would help their minds improve. Ibiki then tossed them a pair of dummies Guide to Warfare and Tactics. Ibiki then spoke to them both. You kids honestly have no idea how to fight and how to work in a team just yet. After all, Hinata, there's a reason why your father chose Hellsing to ally with. You may want to ask Sir Hellsing and Hiashi-sama about politics related topics and to keep yourself information. Ibiki then removed his bandana at which Naruto could only gulp and shake while Hinata was horrified and she began to cry for Ibiki's head was covered with cigar marks and screw holes and slashes. Information is power, remember that, kids. Ibiki then put his head cover back on and then walked out saying have a good day. Leaving Naruto and Hinata to think on what Ibiki had just said to them. Hinata-chan, Ibiki-sensei is right. We do need to know more about stuff. Do you know where to start? Naruto inquired. Hinata then nodded and then beckoned for Naruto to follow her to her home, the vast Hyuga mansion. After a few minutes of running and some tree jumping, they arrived at the gates, at which the branch Hyugas greeted both children warmly. As Naruto was walking up the path to the main part of the mansion, he was distracted by a series of low grunts and pants. He then walked over to see a boy with long flowing hairs and a grim expression on his face. Naruto then exclaimed, "Niji-san." Naruto screamed as he saw a boy practicing his routine that involved popping cherries. He had a pile of cherries next to him and a pile that was already popped. His hands were sticky and red from all the popping that he was doing. Yes, Niji could only ask in a strained voice as Naruto had just interrupted his favorite part of his monthly routine. "Why are you popping cherries again?" Naruto asked in a disappointed tone. "Because I happen to enjoy it and you just ruined the moment, thank a lot." Jerk. Niji's hands was beginning to shake from sheer rage and frustration, for this wasn't not the first, not the second time, but the 20th time Naruto had stopped Niji as he was about to pop a cherry. "Whatever makes you happy, weirdo." Naruto then beckons for Hinata to follow him into the mansion. "Finally those guys are gone. Now back to my popping." As Niji popped a cherry he was starting to talk of Venus. Inside the mansion. Naruto then sent out a rapid stream of greeting to the servants who replied back cheerfully, or they were rapped rather harshly by Hinata's aunt. Now, Hinata's aunt is a rather large woman who moves with the grace of a cat. Hinata's aunt had just whipped an insolent male servant across the cheek for not greeting Naruto back. "Simply divine to see you, adorable darlings." Hinata's aunt was waddling toward them, preparing for a bone-crushing hug. Naruto and Hinata knew that it would hurt them, but they enjoyed the hug anyway, due to the nature of the hug. Snap. Pop. Shatter. Those were the sounds you would usually hear if Hinata's aunt hugged you. Naruto was let down, and then he popped some bones back into places, while Hinata was teary from the sheer pain, and then sat down praying for the pain to go away. Sadly it never went away, as long as Hinata's aunt was around. "So what are you splendid darlings doing in this dusty shack this time of the day?" Hinata's aunt was directing the servants to settle up Hayashi's new bust, which captured his steel-eyed expression remarkably well. The fact that he had his bloodline limit activated didn't hurt either. "Well, we're here to study up on new stuff," Naruto shouted and then rushed to the library. "I guess I'll go and help Naruto-kun find the books. Good afternoon to you." Hinata bowed and then chased Naruto. "Such an adorable pair of children, a shame I'm past my prime. Otherwise I would have got that hunky Walter in a snap. Alas, youth is wasted on children." Hinata's aunt then gave a melodramatic sigh and then shouted at the servants to keep the bust steady or they'll have their chakra holes shut and they would suffer a painful torture and possible death. Inside the mansion's library. Naruto blasted through the door and slammed into Integra. As Integra saw Naruto atop her, she smiled and then moved Naruto off her and then spoke to him. "So, Naruto, how did your first day of the academy go?" "Cool. But Hinata-chan and I met a really scary guy, but he's way cool." Naruto then began to yell excitedly about how Ibiki had showed Naruto and Hinata his wounds and Integra grimaced a bit upon hearing about Ibiki's war wounds. Sounds like you had an interesting day, did you?" Integra spoke rather softly. "Perhaps you would like to study under a variety of instructors?" Integra asked with a hint of coyness. "That would be awesome. Please do it. Please." Naruto was shocked and then jumped and gave Integra a big hug, to which Integra gave Naruto his hug back. "My, how quickly have you grown, Naruto. You really are my son. Despite the fact that I'm not your biological mother, I still feel like a mother to you." Integra in a rare fit of sentimental feeling. "Why, master? Don't tell me you've fallen for his charm already." Alucard sent a telepathy to which Integra promptly told him to fuck off. An echoing laughter rang through Integra's mind as she held Naruto, who was blabbing about how cool it would be to have a lot of different instructors. As Hinata came into the library, Integra had let Naruto go, and Naruto told Hinata about what Integra was going to do for them. Hinata wasn't as excited about it as Naruto was, but she was still excited. Integra then told them both to go to the meeting place where Saraz and Momori had met each other for the first time. She said there was a surprise for them both at that place. Naruto, always a child, roared with joy and grabbed Hinata, who managed to let out a feeble bye to Integra as he rushed outside and dodged Hinata's aunt and the weeping servants who were still struggling with Hiyashi's bust. As Naruto passed Niji, he let out a loud noise that startled Niji as he was about to pop a cherry. Niji then let out a loud and rather unhyuga string of curses at Naruto for ruining his passion yet again. Such a shame, really. As Naruto and Hinata ran through the city and jumped over buildings and trees, they landed at the meeting place to see Saraz and Alucard as well as Walter, who was reading Icha Icha Paradise yet again. Walter was chuckling and he was fervently reading every word carefully as well as analyzing the images. That pervert. This is so troublesome. A mysterious boy who was flanked by a large boy who was closely followed by a blonde and a pink-haired female who was fighting each other for the lead. Naruto then looked at them and asked Saraz who they were. Saraz replied, "Wait, and you'll see." Saraz smiled. As Naruto and Hinata were greeted by Saraz at the park, Naruto couldn't ignore the fact that there were 4 children his age staring at him, as well as Hinata. Saraz-chan. Who are those kids? Naruto pointed frantically at the scowling boy, the blonde, and the pink-haired girls who were shouting at each other over some girl things, as well as the large boy who was munching from a bag of chips. Saraz merely put her hand on Naruto's head and ruffled up his hair, making his hair even more rowdy than it was before, replying that they were a surprise for Naruto and Hinata. While Naruto was getting excited at the prospect of surprises, Saraz then introduced the 4 kids to Naruto, and Hinata, starting off with the boy eating the chips as Choji Akimichi, the scowling boy is Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka is the blonde, and the pink-haired girl is Sakura Haruno. Although I think 3 more are to show up pretty soon. As soon Saraz said that last word, the park immediately began to suffer spasm tremors, which only intensified until at last Sasuke was seen jumping out of a bush, with his clothes being gashed and tore and patches of bald spots on his head that appeared as like his hair had been ripped out, his face was smudged, and he had a look of unnatural panic on his face. As he got to the ground and began to sprint the ninja-style way, the cause of the tremors was soon made clear. For there was a horde of young, angry, desperate fangirls all screaming for Sasuke's attention. The mob never let up their daily chase of Sasuke, even though Sasuke had moved on and found love, but that's a different story for later. Well, that's one. Saraz chuckled awkwardly upon viewing the pathetic excuse of a chase. Hey. Wait up. A kid was running toward the group already sitting around on benches or entertaining themselves. One thing of particular notice was that this kid had a puppy huddled up in his jacket and he was sprinting toward Saraz as if he knew her from before then. Sorry I'm late. Akamaru here got hungry and I had to feed him some meat. The puppy in question woofed upon hearing his name and began to cool off by panting. Kiba and Yuzuka here. The boy in question introduced himself to the other children. Akamaru meanwhile had snuck out of Kiba's jacket and sneaked up behind Saraz and set himself right under Saraz. Therefore Akamaru had a view that men would die and empires would go to war over. In short, Akamaru could see up Saraz's skirt. Kiba suddenly noticed that Akamaru had a slight nosebleed and was wagging his tail quite rapidly. Oh Akamaru, you damn pervert, get over here now, get here now. Kiba could only think in horror as Saraz was beginning to feel a faint wind around her ankles. Kiba nearly sobbed in relief as Saraz looked down and saw nothing out of the original, for Akamaru, being the clever puppy he was, jumped from there and went to mark a tree so as to not raise any suspicions from Saraz. Kiba then strolled over to pick Akamaru up, laughing at his antics, and then whispered in Akamaru's right ear, "Damn it. That was way too freaking close, don't do that even again." Akamaru then suddenly got a vicious look in his eyes and made a series of faint noises, then it appeared that Akamaru grinned. Akamaru then jumped out of Kiba's arms. Now, Kiba is a boy, he is accustomed to women around him, but even this couldn't prepare Kiba for what Akamaru had just told him. Kiba was in a state of shock. Thoughts were storming through his head, but all of those thoughts had one thing in common. Saraz Victoria wore briefs. As the group was chattering happily down in the park in the village of Konoha, proof enough of Konoha's recovery from Kyuubi's attack all those years ago, it appeared to be progressing into one of its peaceful eras. However, it wasn't to pass so. Scores of miles away in a dense jungle populated by forbidden creatures and numerous other horrors that were excluded, as to give the citizens peace of mind, in the heart of this murky forest, there is a ruined ward in front of a cave with a massive, hunching entrance. The man with long flowing black hair, as well sinister eyes, had emerged from the bushes surrounding the cave and walked up boldly to the ruined wards and performed a 5-hand seals combo, as if to mask something. The man who had done the hand seals spoke in a low, serpentine voice. Master, the preparations are nearly in place. We have discovered the source of Kyuubi the nine-tailed fox's downfall. According to the information currently available to us at the moment, there are rumors of a true Nosferatu residing in the village of Konoha. The man had ended his report with a respectful kneel toward the entrance of the cave. Moments later, a grinding, slightly insane voice boomed out, "Ah, so the gods deemed it fit to rain down what we cannot achieve in the form of a human. How delightfully ironic. Go out and gather more information, as well garnish whatever forces you are able to, but heed this. Do not let any of those damned villages glimpse into our true objectives, now go." The kneeling man had disappeared the moment the grinding voice had dismissed him, although the grinding voice did have a bitter chuckle. "Always a manipulative person, aren't we, Orochimaru?" The voice then broke out in an endless string of roaring laughter that sent the surrounding area buzzing with movements. "I see he made his movement so early." The third Hokage seated at his chair behind his desk suddenly looked very weary. "Yes, Hokage-sama, that tidbit of information was the best I was able to extract from one of his grunts." Ibiki stood in front of the desk with an arm heavily bandaged, plus several new scars now visible on his face. "I ended up having to use that technique to just even get something out of a low-ranking grunt, forgive me for the pessimistic attitude, but you must consider this movement to be a grave threat based on the information I've obtained." Ibiki gazed for a moment at the broken heap of a human that Ibiki had captured and tortured for information. "Still, this is far too bold even for Orochimaru to think that he could do this. It implies that he is not alone in this movement," the elderly man pointed out. "But that's impossible. I thought your actions against Orochimaru taught him that this sort of thing wouldn't be tolerated." A sturdy man with a trimmed beard plus a smoldering cigar in his fingers roared out. "Asuma, please don't forget we are not dealing with a normal missing nin. He's one of the legendary Sanins, and such we cannot ignore his action whatever it is," the Hokage scolded his nephew. "Besides, surely you don't think of me as a deluded old man. He is already beginning to gather us information." Upon that comment, the room fell into silence with hardly any noise to disrupt the now tranquil atmosphere. "Although one does hope he hasn't fallen victim to his weakness," the Hokage exhaled sharply. This man in question was none other than Jiraiya the Toad Hermit. This man who was spoken so highly of by the third Hokage didn't appear to be one a leader would praise, in fact he appeared to be someone people would criticize. For he was drunk and giggling and speaking to a mob of well-endowed women who had no morals at all. The shack that Jiraiya was staying in hummed with activity and vitality all night and all day long. It had gotten so noisy quite recently that the people who dwelled around that shack had moved on with angry words and rage in their heart toward this man who could score, and they were unable to score as well. Whispers of alluring sultry voices swirled around a blissfully oblivious Jiraiya who had used up the last drop of his stamina and now was out of action for quite a while. The women who had surrounded Jiraiya immediately backed up from him murmuring words of disgust as well hatred toward him for being so lecherous. Several of the bolder women had gone through Jiraiya's belongings and found an ample amount of money. Upon finding this cash, several of the women fled out of the shack, although some of the more devious women had decided on a punishment for him. With this in mind, they set out to humiliate Jiraiya in the worst way possible. The next day, as people woke up from their slumber and prepared for their day, a crowd was already forming at the front of Jiraiya's shack. As soon as they saw who it was, the crowd roared out in laughter and even cheered upon this tragic punishment to Jiraiya the legendary Toad Hermit. For he was stripped naked, forced to sit on a wooden torture horse with a ball gag in his mouth, a tragedy. The moral of this scene, revenge is a dish best served cold. The end. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then sayonara.